All right, so Cam Newton. This is a story I don't know if a lot of you know what happened here or anything like that, but Cam Newton made news by comparing quarterbacks and calling some game changers and others game managers, which I mean that's been talked for years, how to really decipher between quarterbacks and ranking them and all that. Everybody does that. I've done that, you've done that. But Cam Newton's explanation, because he talked about some quarterbacks from today, where he said like Prescott, Purdy, Tua, Jared Goff are game managers, and that ruffled some feathers because game manager is such a negative connotation now that because those teams are winning, it's hard to see them as game managers. So ESPN talked about it and everything like that. So Cam Newton tried to clarify it. I don't know if he made it clearer with this clarification, but I saw the clarification video and looked a little bit more into it, and I think I kind of get where he was trying to come from. It's just I don't know if he fully, you know, explained it well enough. So basically, for him, in order to be a game changer, he said there's only like 5 of them in the league right now, and he named Patrick Mahomes, he named Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers. He said those are the 5 game changers. So basically saying that everybody else is the game manager. I look at the 5 that he calls game changers, and I feel like what they all have in common is kind of like if the play breaks down, they have the ability to still make a play. I think that's where Cam Newton's calling those guys game changers. Where not, everything doesn't have to necessarily be perfect around them for them to be effective because of their ability, because of their, I guess, IQ and everything like that, which I'm fine with. Game manager, he's looking at, like Prescott, Purdy, Tua, and Jared Goff, and I think he highlighted Purdy with this one by saying basically that Purdy was a trailer on the wagon of the 49ers and not necessarily the driver. Which, once again, if you look at the 49ers play, their success is built on the fact that they have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and these guys, Christian McCaffrey on offense, and Purdy, being a Mr. Irrelevant, isn't asked to do too much. So because of that, Cam calls him a game manager. But once again, game manager has been negatively discussed for so many years that when you hear game manager, you automatically assume the quarterback stinks and the team's winning despite them. Where I could say, I wouldn't say that for Brock Purdy or Tua or Jared Goff or Dak Prescott. Those guys contribute to their team's success. So that's what I think the problem is. The fact that Cam tried to put game manager in a positive light, which I can agree with him there. Because then he talked about some past quarterbacks that were elite game managers, and he put Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and those guys in that. I also think that's where he kind of dropped the ball a little bit because, yes, Tom Brady was seen as a game manager early in his career because, like Brock Purdy, he was a 6th-round pick. Not a lot was expected of him. He wasn't even the starter in New England from day one because they had Drew Bledsoe, and because of the Bledsoe injuries, how Brady was elevated to that spot. But those early years, he, handed the ball off a lot. He threw a lot of short, quick passes, moved the ball down the field. But they relied so much on their great defense to create short fields and everything like that. Very conservative game plan. That's where I see the game manager part. But you can't tell me that Brady was just a game manager when he had years with wide receiver groups that probably a lot of you couldn't name most of the guys he was throwing to, and he still found success with those players. Does that not necessarily make him a game changer then? Because he's the guy who was the spear was who spearheaded those teams making deep runs in the playoffs. Now Manning, kind of the same way. Manning had years in Indy where their defense was awful, and because Manning's offense, led by him, won a lot of games and made the playoffs. So that's why I guess the backlash is coming from, because like I said, game manager, when you hear it, you think of guys like Trent Dilfer and everything like that. Whereas I don't actually think everybody that he put on the list as game managers are actually game managers. So I don't know. You let me know what you think. Like, who would you call a game manager in today's NFL? Because if I'm going to say anybody's a game manager, you would think like Zach Wilson. Because for Zach Wilson, with as great of a defense the Jets have, all the Jets kind of want Zach Wilson to do is not turn the ball over. That seems like a game manager to me. They don't want him to make plays. If he does, that's a plus. But it's almost like they go into every week trying to game plan for how to limit his mistakes. And to me, if you told me that's what a game manager was, I'm there with you. But I mean, look, Cam Newton had an opinion. What's the problem with that? He's free to have one. He has a platform to put that out to everybody, and he used it. Now, whether you agree or disagree, that's also within your right as well. But, some people who are acting like Cam Newton shouldn't be talking or anything like that, that's obviously an issue, but that's an issue that goes well beyond sports in today's world. Respecting other opinions. But, I'm not going to go down that road. So, look, Cam Newton, and look, I guess I need to say this. I almost feel like a lot of the backlash from Cam Newton is because of kind of the latter part of his career where he wasn't a successful quarterback. Let's be honest. He slowly became almost like a wildcat running back playing quarterback, which he still found ways to win games. But that's not who Cam Newton necessarily was for the bulk of his career. Because Cam Newton found success in college. He won an MVP. He made a Super Bowl. He did all that on Carolina teams that you could make the argument weren't the most talented. But because of him and his ability, he got them much further than probably other quarterbacks would. So, just saying.